I have used the mastermind principles for almost a quarter of a century. And Roy has alluded to that I've had a tremendous amount of what people perceive as success. I never see myself the way people see me when they look at my CV, or because I've been an award-winning author, an award-winning professor at 3 universities, and an award-winning filmmakers. And I've, in truth, I have worked at the very zenith in Hollywood with Disney, with United Artists, with Francis Ford Coppola, Zoetrope Studios. I've done 130 primetime series, a lot of hours of documentaries. And I've had the chance to really travel the world and meet some of the most interesting people on the planet. And that's one of the great blessings that I've had. And what got me into the process of masterminding is that very early on, when we did, Philip Borsos and I, the late Philip Borsos, we were partners when I was in graduate school at Simon Fraser doing my master's degree in communication theory. And it was political economy, mass media, and systems theory, because at one point I was going to be a counselor, a therapist dealing with alcohol and drugs. And I'll relate that to the books that I've written and how the 8 steps came to be and how it is that I instituted and integrated them into my life on a very practical basis. And, there's 3 books. I'm only going to talk at length today about serenity. There are 3 books that all have the same covers, and they were designed by a company called Leap Creative, Raymond Ma. And Survival is Transforming Childhood Trauma, 8 Steps to Reclaim Your Life. And what happened to me is that I was born into a family in Northern Ontario. My dad was a civic politician. He was what's called a life underwriter with London Life. My dad was their top producer for 25 years. I grew up in a very affluent and very privileged background. And the problem for my dad was that he was a really horrible alcoholic. And at the age of 12, standing on a stairway in a drunken blackout, he loaded a 12-gauge shotgun with 3 shells, pumped it, aimed it at my mother and I, and pulled the trigger 3 times. And the gun jammed. It wouldn't fire. And what that did to me as a 12-year-old is it just shut me down. And I made a decision that I would never trust anyone again. God. This is my attitude toward God. And I said if God had appeared, I would have spit in his or her face because I was so angry of what had happened to me as a child. And, I carried that through, and what happened at a very young age, I went into Los Angeles, into the rock and roll business. And I had the privilege of knowing and working with a lot of people, many of whom are dead now, because they, unlike me, at the age of 21, I recognized that I had a problem. Alcoholism does not run in my family, it gallops. And I've never had a drink since 1970. I just recognized my life would be over if I did that. And I went and got help for that part of my life. But what I noticed is that wasn't enough to change who I was. I just stopped drinking. But I continued on with overachieving. And so, I went to college, and then I went on to undergraduate, and I went on to graduate school, and then I kept going on, and this is how I ended up teaching at universities. No matter how much I achieved, I never had a moment's peace. And I can remember the year we were nominated for Best Picture and Best Actor with Richard Farnsworth, and for the Golden Globes. And the year before, we'd been nominated for the Academy Award for Nails. And, it didn't matter how much. We did another feature called Till Death Do Us Part that was universally acclaimed. And no matter how much, I can remember I was living in Malibu. I had a house in the beach in Malibu, an apartment in Manhattan. If you ever saw the movie, anybody see Scarface? The movie? That was my apartment in Manhattan. I had a house that had been on the cover of Architectural Digest in Toronto, and then I had a house here in West Vancouver on the Dale. And I was sitting there that night, I was suicidal, because I had been told, if you just achieve this, you're going to be very happy. So I want to wrap up that part, and what I want to say to you is, very briefly, we're going to talk about the steps. So, and here you go. I've been told. So there's the book, Step 1. And so the purpose of the mastermind group is to get like-minded, positive, proactive people together who want to support in their lives and want to support other people's lives using the power of prayer. Reverend Jack Boland, who was a Unity minister, we're at a Unity church, was the man who developed this, the 8-step process. And many, many years ago, if any of you know Catherine Ponder, she used to write me because I wrote her and said, this is how I got into Unity. I said, look, I owe $5.2 million. What do I do? Help me. because I was confused. And she actually wrote me and told me what to do. This is 30 years ago. And it was amazing. So here I didn't know that she was this icon. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have written her. But she came back and just wrote me and said, okay, David, here's what you're going to do. And she was the one that gave me the steps and talked about the principles. So step number 1, I admitted that I was powerless of myself. I'm powerless to solve my problems, powerless to improve my life. I desire or I need help. So there is nobody on this planet capable of self-sustaining every problem that ever approaches us. You need to have help. We all need help. It doesn't matter who you are, how powerful you are, because no matter how great our egos think we are, the universe will always level the playing field when it comes to any kind of delusions of self-sufficiency, because we are all, unfortunately, at some point going to check off the planet. Okay, number 2. I come to believe that a power greater than myself, the mastermind, can change my life. So look, initially I was an atheist, an agnostic. I didn't have the faith to be an atheist. But I was an agnostic for a long time because of what happened to me as a child. Then I came to a place of belief. I just didn't know who I believed in. And so the whole point of these groups, when you're with one another, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be, you don't have to be evangelical or a fundamentalist. You don't have to be Catholic or Protestant, or, you don't have to be a Buddhist or a Jewish or Muslim. I don't care what anybody is. As long as you have a BC Hydro is a power grid and you are. And if you're not, I'll get you an extension cord. We'll put it in your tongue and let's see how long you last. It's a power greater than you are. All you need to do is have a fundamental faith that there's something greater than you that you can ask for help. And I got empirical proof that it works. I know that it works. Unequivocally, I know it works. So number 3, I am ready to be changed. I realize that erroneous self-defeating thinking, and here's the problem for probably most of us. We are operating out of belief systems that we acquired as children that are really flawed. And they don't support us at any level. And the other problem with that is the ego reinforces it, because intergenerationally we have been fed these messages that have no basis in fact. And they are misdirected miscommunications because our parents, in their good intention to help us, said, if you act this way, the Catholic Church that I was raised in, I was doomed to hell by the time I was 14, because they said, if you even think about it, you've sinned. I'm like, oh, Christ. That's all I think about. So when you're 14, what else do you think about? And they were just, it was kind of interesting to me that I thought these things. So I realized that erroneous self-defeating thinking, and self-defeating thinking also, I don't think I can do it. Oh, I can never do that. I'm not smart enough, good enough, talented enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not, whatever the message is that we think. When we walk into a room of strangers and we're riddled with, you may not be, I am, insecurity. Because whatever the message is that I heard, whether you're not good enough, smart enough, fast enough, too fat, too thin, too ugly, too good looking, whatever it, and all this is abuse. This is actually child abuse. But nobody knew it back then. It impacts us so deeply and so profoundly. So, number 4. Okay. I decide to be changed. I make a decision to surrender my will and my life to the mastermind. I'm willing to be changed at depth. What does that mean? So, here's what I'm like. I just got on, anybody flown on the new Dreamliner yet? I did, 3 weeks ago. I get on the Dreamliner. The first thing I want to do is go up to the cockpit and check in with the captain and say, now look, are you really clear about how this thing operates? Do you know really what all these buttons are? Because I'm such a control freak, right? I just think, do I know how to fly? No. But I think I should go up anyways and check in and say, by the way, are you sure you know how to fly? Even though you've been flying for 30 years. And it's just insanity. But that's what I do. I can remember with my ex-wife sitting there going, well, listen, dear, if you would only do the following, your life would really work well. And, apart from I didn't see the fist coming at me. But it's like, none of these things I say or do help anybody, because it's coming from a really damaged place in me. And a thing called codependency. And in my case, I'm black belt codependent. But it's really, my heart's in the right place. My mouth just won't shut up. It goes into overdrive. And I constantly open my mouth to change feet. And, the truth is I got a lot better at it than I used to be, because I just don't do that anymore. So when I make a decision to surrender my will and my life to the mastermind, what it means is when I turn the results over, 4 months ago, a creditor that I had cleared up $500,000 with in my 1986 called me. He said, "Can you still get a movie made?" Out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in 20 years. I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't really want to do movies." He said, "Well, if it were a New York Times bestseller, could you do it?" I said, "Probably." And he said, "Okay, what if it were multiple New York Times bestsellers?" And I said, "Well, how many?" And he said, "I think there's a few." I said, "Well, find out for me." And so it's for 31 potential movies, which would be a series on either Amazon Prime or Netflix. So that was one thing. And then it just keeps getting better, because now what's happened is that other opportunities just keep opening up. But my point is that when I turn the results over and let go of me trying to make the outcome, I put the effort in and let go of the results. And I turn that over to the mastermind. And when I am willing to be changed to depth, that's where my fits of what I call chronic infantile omnipotence. It's when I don't get what I want, I lay on the floor and kick my feet, which is embarrassing at my age. But the point is that I have to let go of expectations. Because, we're all human. I have an ego. My ego goes, well, my feelings are hurt. They hurt my feelings. I didn't do what I wanted to do. Shut up, Dave. Life goes on. And no matter how old I get, it still goes on. And so when I am willing to be changed to depth, I start looking at my part in how I can do those things. So, number 5, I forgive. I forgive myself for all the mistakes and shortcomings. Oh, that was okay. I forgive myself. Actually, it's not. I have the hardest time forgiving myself. You know what? I mean, that's what I came up with. If anybody did to me what I do to myself, I would charge them with assault and battery. But, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I made a lot of mistakes because of disinformation and misinformation that I was raised with. And so when I look at that, I've come to a place I've accepted. I've shared with Mike, because he and I work together on things. I've shared with my friend Peter the exact nature of my resentments, my fears, my sex conduct, and in my case, my debting with money when I got in trouble back in 1986. I've had to look at those 4 specific areas. My relationships with women, why did my relationships end? And I had to do a really thorough inventory. What was my part? And I talked to Deb about this, to my ex-wife about it. And she said, you're actually a really great guy. And she said, the trouble was, you were such a great guy, everybody looked at me like the bad one. And then she ended up doing a whole comedy routine about how I'm Mr. Nice Guy. And she would be, And the truth is, what it was for me was a learning experience. And I asked, we just did a process in Landmark where we had to ask people what we thought. And I remember calling Bonnie and saying, would you answer some questions for me? And what was interesting is to hear what people thought of me. So what I did is I had to look at myself really through a lens of other people to see what did they actually think about me. And I was so pleasantly shocked. I really was pleasantly shocked. And it was wonderful. And it was a great experience. Because if I listen to my head says, no, nobody's going to show up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Who do you think you are? I mean, it's just this endless, repetitive loop of negative thinking that comes to me. And it's, by and large, false evidence appearing real, fear. And that's the part that really cripples me at times. So here's the one that I found a little difficult. I also forgive all other persons who have harmed me. Oh, my God. I had a list, them bastards. And I mean, how was I going to forgive them? I had business partners. Who was the funny? Here's what dawned on me. What was the common denominator in all these situations? Anybody got an idea? Thank you. So how was it that I kept having the same situation arise time after time? And when I started looking at that, I started to realize we're all just flawed bozos on the bus. We're doing the best we can, and we all make mistakes. Yet, at times, I find it difficult to forgive people, but I need to. So I look at that and I say, who are the persons that have harmed me? And I pray for them every day. I pray every day there's 2 business partners I had. I still pray for them every day. I have to. And it's been 15, 16 years. But they hurt me at such a deep level, never mind the money, but just on a personal level. It was so deep a betrayal, and one guy in particular, that I just am astounded how much it hurt me. So it's important. One that is there, that is not there, pardon me, that I use is I pray to be forgiven by anyone living or dead for any harm I may have caused them. And I ask that if there's anybody in the universe that I've ever harmed, that they would find it in their heart or soul to forgive me. Because I know that at times when I was young and afraid, I said and did really stupid things. And I need to look at that part. Okay, and here you go. Step 6, I make known my specific requests, asking my partner's full support and knowing the mastermind is fulfilling my needs. So what we do, and I'm going to show you this in a few minutes, is we sit down and say, okay, I said this morning, I have this big meeting in Toronto with the third largest company in Canada. I want them to partner with me on these 31 movies. I said I would ask that the mastermind would help me to have the best results in Toronto with this company, that I would be guided to the best possible results, that I would be guided today to do the best possible job I could, and that I also, with AARP, would be guided to the best outcome, and that every area of my life, and often I pray for my children, or, I pray every day for my kids and my family, and for people who have passed on, I just do that. And I try to say it. And I also offer up a prayer of gratitude, because I just cannot believe the wonderful things happening in my life. I mean, it's so amazing. At my age, I'm like a guy 30. I mean, I got all this stuff happening. I'm going, wow, how is this happening? And I've got the energy, and I've got the memory is back, by the way. I've reclaimed 90% of it. And while I don't have the razor-sharp memory I once did, I got a really good one. I have not got lost once this morning here, speaking without notes. And the thing about it is I used to be able to lecture for 3 hours nonstop without notes. And that was one of the gifts that got me that teaching award, is because I would keep it. So at each time, each member of the group will make their verbal request using the wording in number 6. After each request, each member in the group will acknowledge the request, offer a brief prayer. So we just say, the mastermind has heard your request in prayer, and I believe that you are being guided. And we just say a prayer. We just make it up. It's extemporaneous. It's not like rote or calf, just whatever comes in your heart. And you just say, I believe and affirm that you are being guided to the greatest good in what you've asked. And that's one of the wonderful, and you have no idea how beautiful that is. It's such a great experience praying. I remember the first time I did this, I was like really yucky, because I'd never done this. It felt really weird. I'm Catholic, you know what I mean? Like, Hail Mary, full of grace, help. I just didn't do that. So now, number 7. Is that number 7? Yes. I give thanks. I give thanks that the mastermind is responding to my needs, and I assume the same feelings I had in my quest were fulfilled. And so it's important to give gratitude. If you want to open up the channel to abundance in your life, if you want peace in your life, if you want happiness in your life, that's the key. You've got to give thanks. And if you're having the worst time of your life, give thanks, because inevitably every single adversity carries with it the seed for equal or greater opportunity. It just does. We don't change. Has anybody in this room ever learned anything on a good day? Hands up. On a good day? When you're pounded against the wall, when everything's falling apart, when the marriage is ending, when the money's out, when the creditors are calling, that's when we make a change. Because we don't do it. We're just wired. Up here, so we have a variety of hard drives, right? We have a very ancient one called the amygdala, sitting on, it's like a flash drive because not much memory there. And then you've got, the cerebral cortex, neocortex, the cerebellum. We have the temporal lobes. We have all of these hard drives sitting on top of one another. The problem is the wiring, the software is, quite frankly, in conflict with each other. And this is why we have so many problems. Just biologically, we're not designed yet to be integrated. The systems are still at war with one another. So that's when that little sucker at the base of our skull takes over and we want to bash somebody through road rage. That's where it's all coming from. And at some point we have to evolve past that. And there was a man named Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Catholic paleontologist, a Jesuit, who said, it is through the evolution of us spiritually that we will get to a place of being able to move past that. And there are those very sacred and blessed people who seem to have it. I'm not one of them. But they have that ability to discern when things are not going well, and they can channel it in a way that's not destructive. So it's important for all of us, and also to act as if you're getting it, because your brain does not know. So look, we're sitting, that's the other thing, is it's the greatest computer ever created. And it will automatically drive me toward what it is I seek. If I write it out, put it on a picture, put it on a board, and write out claims. Number 8, I dedicate my life. I now have a covenant which is agreed. The mastermind is supplying me with an abundance of all things necessary to live a successful and happy life. I dedicate myself to be a maximum service to God and to those around me, and to live in a manner that sets the highest example for others to follow, and remain responsive to God's guidance. I go forth with a spirit of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. More importantly, I am at peace. So, you know, when we're right-sized, when we're connected to a higher power, when we're working with others, when we have these groups that I want to suggest we're going to do next after a little break, then you start to experience the benefits. And that 8th step, what I'm doing here today is I am trying to do with that 8th step, which is a covenant agreed to mastermind and supply me with abundance of all things necessary to live a happy and successful life. And I dedicate myself to be maximum service to God. And my work today is to try to share with you what I've learned so that I can give it away. You know, if I want to keep something, I want to give it away. If I try to hold on to anything, I lose it. The spiritual axiom, you know, keep it, you give it away. And so today my sharing with you on this subject is me trying to share with you the benefits and the wonderful technology, and it is a technology, because it's a guaranteed result if we will follow these steps. The outcome is always going to be identical. So with that, I will just call this part officially to an end and say that why don't we take a break for a few minutes, and then what I'm going to ask is you would get into tables either with somebody you know, and if you don't know somebody, just find a table where you can be 4 of you, or if there's 5 of you that know each other and want to do it, that's fine. You should not exceed 6. And I'm going to give you a demonstration, and you're going to all have a chance to just try it out.